We left off yesterday talking about sexual reproduction, sexual organs, specifically the male reproductive system, and we stopped talking about talking about puberty for males, right? And there's one thing here that I mentioned, as I promised you guys, I'm gonna talk about. It's a little bit detailed, but that tiny bit of detail that I will mention, you will need to know for the exam, okay? And it has to do with are gonadotrophins, okay? Now, I mentioned that gonadotrophins are a class of hormones, okay? They're glycoprotein hormones, and two examples of those are FSH and LH. And I mentioned these two yesterday briefly, okay? FSH is follicle stimulating hormone, and LH on top over here is luteinizing hormone. And these two have important roles and sexual maturity, reproduction, that kind of thing. Okay, and I want you to know what they both do. Okay, just quickly, they're both secreted by the anterior pituitary gland. Just as a side note. Okay, these are both secreted by your anterior pituitary gland. FSH is going to be the main role of FSH is to progress. When it gets secreted, it's going to actually push forward the maturation of our gametes, aka our sex cells, aka sperm and eggs. Okay, like the final maturation process of these different types of gametes is going to be pushed by follicle stimulating hormone, so FSH. Now, luteinizing hormone, on the other hand, is going to play a huge role in puberty, namely with secreting a lot more hormones. Okay, so for example, for women, it's going to be more estrogen. For men, more testosterone. Okay, especially like for women during ovulation, that's what luteinizing hormone does, LH. That's what it's going to be doing. It's going to promote the secretion of estrogen. And for male, on the other hand, it's going to be promoting the secretion of testosterone on the other hand. Okay? That's all I want you guys to know for those. All right? Is everyone clear on that? Because I promised you yesterday that I was going to just mention a little bit more detail yesterday about it. I didn't have enough time. Yeah. FSH is called follicle stimulating hormone. Okay. It's one of the gonadotrophins. Okay, and the primary role for FSH is to promote the maturation of gametes, meaning that your sex cells are going to be they're going to be fully differentiated and then fully functional because of FSH, meaning that our primary spermatocytes, for example, or spermatids, they'll fully become sperms for males, and for females, you're going to get eggs. Okay, so that the formation, the final transition into the fully formed sex cells is going to be because of FSH. All right. Then LH, also known as luteinizing hormone, okay, that one is going to be the primary function for that is to secrete various hormones and other hormones into our body, different steroids. For example, estrogen for women and testosterone for males. Okay, so it's going to be pushing for the secretion of testosterone in men, and it's going to be pushing for the secretion of estrogen in females, especially during ovulation for females. Okay. Yeah. So that's all I want to I want you guys to, and also of course these two are going to be, and I mentioned this before, it's secreted by the anterior pituitary gland as well. So I want you guys to know that, all right, for the exam. Anyways, that, all right, so let's talk about a little bit more about the hormonal balance, okay? And not necessarily because not necessarily LH or FSH, but just in general, okay? So let's first talk about GnRH, which stands for gonadotropic releasing hormone. Okay. Now, guys, remember from the previous chapter, okay? Whenever you see the word releasing hormone, those two words together like that, it's going to mean it's coming from the hypothalamus. Okay. That means this hormone is going to push, is going to give the okay for your anterior pituitary gland okay? Or or in general, your anterior pituitary gland or the following gland, the okay, to start secreting the hormone that it is synthesizing, okay? So and this here normally is gonna be regulated by a negative feedback loop, okay? Now what happened is, all right, during puberty, and this is important, okay, and I made sure to write this out, okay, and underline it for you guys. The hypothalamus during puberty is going to be less sensitive to high testosterone levels, okay? And this is and because you're going to have less sensitivity to testosterone, that means that you're going to be able to secrete more testosterone without shutting off this process, okay? So this means that you're going to be able to maintain high levels of testosterone, okay? Now, let me explain it in the other way around, okay? Let's say let's say during puberty, instead of being less sensitive, you're going to be more sensitive to testosterone, okay? Your body is going to be more sensitive, and specifically your hypothalamus, okay? This means that your hypothalamus is going to be more sensitive to inhibition, okay? Meaning that gonadotropic releasing hormone is going to be inhibited more likely. If the hypothalamus is more sensitive, then that means that GnRH is going to be less likely to be secreted, okay? Meaning that you're actually going to inhibit the development of secondary male characteristics, okay? Or sorry, male characteristics. In the context of this chapter, are male, but also the same thing with females, okay? You're going to inhibit that process of puberty, all right? That's why it's very important that our hypothalamus becomes less sensitive. That means they're going to become more resistant to the presence of testosterone. And this means that this negative feedback loop that you normally have is going to be impeded, basically. The threshold to actually have that negative feedback loop occur is going to be a lot higher, okay? Meaning that the testosterone levels has to be absurdly high for you to actually get a negative feedback, okay, during puberty. All right? Does that make sense to you guys? And like I said, okay, like I said before, okay, whenever you see releasing hormone, it's coming from the hypothalamus, okay? Then what happened afterwards? It's going to be secreted, GnRH, gonadotropic releasing hormone. It's going to go towards the pituitary gland. And what the pituitary gland is going to do then is going to be able to then secrete out luteinizing hormone and follicle stimulating hormone. I already told you guys what those two do, okay? Those two are very important, all right? Now, luteinizing hormone is actually going to go to is going to actually, like I said before, it has to do with um, different hormones like estrogen and testosterone secretion. And then follicle stimulating hormone has to do with promoting the maturation of your gametes. Okay, so you can look over here, look at the chart. Okay, I'm going to zoom in a little. Let me see if I can zoom in, turn off the annotation quickly, and make a just zoom in a little bit. Okay, like that. All right, so now it's nicely, let me just move a little bit here. All right, there we go. Very nice. All right. So of course we're looking at the male reproductive organ right now. So LH and FSH go into they target two different areas, okay? Now, FSH is going to go towards your cystine cells, okay? And what's going to do is it's going to promote the formation of androgen binding protein. And remember, androgen binding protein is required for maturation of gametes. It's one of the intermediates required. So FSH is going to stimulate the production and secretion of androgen binding protein, ABP, okay? And ABP then is going to promote the process called spermatogenesis. And spermatogenesis is basically the specific pathway of maturation for a sperm. Okay, so from primary spermatocyte all the way to a sperm. Okay, after that, and then on the other hand, you can have luteinizing hormone, and luteinizing hormone is going to actually target your interstitial cells. Okay, and then the interstitial cells then is going to promote the secretion release of testosterone. Okay, and testosterone then is going to go back also and promote further secretion and synthesis of androgen binding protein. But testosterone does something else in addition to promoting increased androgen binding protein levels, okay? It does one more thing, okay? It's going to actually increase your libido, okay, for a male, all right? A male's libido is going to be increased due to testosterone. And the way it does this, it goes back to the brain. I'll show you. I'm going to zoom back out now. Okay? Oop, too much. Okay? So testosterone is going to go out, increase your libido, and as well as, and I already spoke about this before, it's going to have to do with the development of secondary sex organs as well as your secondary sex characteristics. Okay? All right? So you know how important testosterone is to a male at the very least, right? Okay. Now, the there's another word for interstitial cells I should mention, and I have it outlined here, as well as sustentacular cells. Okay, the Leydig cells, which are called interstitial cells, those like I said before, those are going to be secreting testosterone. Okay, those are responsible for that. And your Sertoli cells, aka sustentacular cells over here, is going to be secreting ABP. Okay, and ABP, like I said before, is very important. It's going to be permissive to testosterone. Testosterone is actually going to promote more ABP function. Okay, as you can see over here on the right side over here, how it goes back in and actually interacts with ABP more. It's going to promote more ABP function. Okay, is everyone clear on that? And by the way, I won't be using interstitial cells or sustentacular cells or nursing cells. I'll be using the term Sertoli cells and Leydig cells. Okay, those are the commonly used names for them. Okay, is this clear to everyone? All right. So, by the way, okay, this might be a good question to ask. Okay, in terms of the negative feedback loop, normally what would happen when you're not in puberty, so you're gonna secrete testosterone, right? Like testosterone is going to be the end result, what's going to be secreted, all right? And testosterone does these different things, okay? But normally when you're not in puberty, testosterone is going to go back up into your hypothalamic region, and there's going to be a negative feedback loop where it's going to inhibit the release of gonadotropin releasing hormone, okay? So it's going to stop further production of testosterone. Because after puberty, you don't need that constant high levels of testosterone, okay, as a male. Same thing for female, right? You don't have constantly elevated levels of these different steroidal hormones, okay? So they're going to be more finely regulated after you finish puberty, all right? All right, so that's that for this. Go right ahead and okay. So let's talk about inhibin, and I did talk about this briefly. So inhibin is another type of hormone, okay? And inhibin, what it does is it's going to function to decrease sperm count in the male, okay? So the normal sperm count ranges between 20 to 140 million sperm cells per milliliter of ejaculate, okay? And of course, and I mentioned this yesterday, that when you get older, okay, that's one of the factors that's going to influence sperm count, okay? Now here we go. So age course. Health, of course, health is going to, overall health always influences this. It's just in general, it does that. Testicular temperature, exposure to environmental factors. I mentioned this in a little bit more detail yesterday about how a person who's maybe working more in construction business and they're wearing more jeans and it's more hot, right? That means you're going to be increasing artificially the temperature of the testicles, right? And when your testicles are in a higher temperature for a male, you're going to inhibit uh, greater sperm count. So you're going to decrease the amount of sperm cells being produced, okay? Because it's not favorable conditions heat-wise. Like the temperature is not favorable to the development of sperm cells, okay? Now, how does inhibin decrease sperm count? Well, It's going to selectively inhibit FSH, but not LH or testosterone. Now, if I remember what I told you, follicle stimulating hormone, FSH, has to do with the maturation of gametes. That means that FSH is responsible for producing fully functional eggs as well as fully functional sperm cells. Okay. And when I say the word functional, I mean fully matured cells. Okay. They're fully differentiated, they're fully specialized to do their job. Okay. And so this mechanism decreases also as a consequence androgen binding protein to regulate sperm count while maintaining other characteristics. Okay, and the maintaining of other characteristics has to do with inhibin not um, not influencing the secretion of luteinizing hormone and not testosterone. Like you still have testosterone levels testosterone being produced as well as luteinizing hormone. Okay, the only thing it influences is FSH. Okay, it inhibits FSH. The other things has nothing to do with it. Okay, is everyone good on that? And I know it came off like it may be a little bit humorous, but when I talk to you guys about that whole thing with the construction working, and especially yesterday, someone who's working in warmer conditions, that could be a question on the exam. Okay, like I've asked you, you know, let's say a person is working, in so and so company, and they're going to be subjected to higher temperatures, around, especially around their waist, right, down uh, their pelvic region, right? Then you have to tell me that based on that, they're going to have lower sperm count, right? And it could be like I could give you a question like, suppose a couple walks into the clinic, right? And their concern is they want to have children, right? But they figure that they've been having sex during the woman's menstruation period, like during her period when she has the time to actually during her period to actually conceive. Uh, but they're for some reason it's not working, right? And then the doctor that you or the doctor you're gonna take a sperm sample from the man because that's one of the things you would do. You don't immediately go to the women. You could, but typically you could go to the men because you could just tell the men to go into the happy room. You give them some magazines and do their thing there, and then you collect that sample there, and it's quicker, right, for men to do that. It's a quicker answer, and you find out there's a lower sperm count, right? And then you can ask the person, you could say that you do work in a construction company. Do you what kind of working conditions are you at normally, right? And you kind of have to put one and two together. It's like a puzzle, kind of almost like a case study of some sorts, and that's how you approach that kind of question. Okay, so pay attention to those things I talk about. Okay, all right, let's see here. All right, so these are your interstitial cells. Okay, now 1 second here. Not interstitial cells. I'm sorry. Okay. All right. Forget what I just said. All right. I mean, there are interstitial cells here, but I want to tell you the entire structure here. So, of course, here are your interstitial cells. These are over here. So this cross section collectively, guys, this entire thing here, this here is called your seminiferous tubule. Okay, and this is where the whole where you can actually see the maturation of sperm occur. Okay. So over here you have interstitial cells over here, okay? And you have a lot of connective tissues, like these little white spaces over here. The little white spaces with the darker purple line over here. Actually, let me circle that again. That was bad. It's hard to see the white line between the darker purple line, but that's where I'm drawing through. That's where the connective tissue is. Okay. Now inside you have germ cells. Now the way it works. way you're gonna orient yourself, let me actually zoom in so it's easier for you to see. Okay. The way you would like if I'll ask you a question on this, okay? Now, the way you want to orient yourself as far as how mature the gametes are, the male gametes are, is they are less matured the closer you are to this wall over here. Okay, so over here, like around this area, you're gonna have primary spermatocytes. Okay, then as you get closer over here, like these cells over here, these are gonna be like the secondary spermatocytes. All right, and I'll talk about this more shortly, okay? And in the middle, it'll be a little bit difficult to see, but if you look closely, you'll kind of see a kind of like a stringy, like fibrous looking uh object there. Okay, and I'm drawing the lines through them, like over here. You see like little fibrous lines. Those are the tails of the sperms. Okay, now right over here, like around over here, you're gonna have the spermatids, but at the center, you're gonna have the sperms. So as you go further towards the center of the seminiferous tubule, okay, here, okay, as you get into the closer to the center of it, okay, that means the gametes are more mature. Okay, that's how it kind of goes. That's the general process. All right, make sense? I want you to know that kind of that flow. All right. Okay. All right. So let's talk about fertilization. Now, this is going to be common sense, I would hope, for most of you. But the whole process of fertilization is going to involve a sperm and an egg, right? We all know this. Okay. Now, fertilization, of course, requires these two gametes, the sperm and ovum. Okay. Each has to be haploid. Okay. For this to work, each of them has to be haploid. And remember, during meiosis, it's reductive cell division. So you're going to be starting with, so your germline cell is initially going to have 46 chromosomes, so a pair of each chromosome in the karyotype. But after meiosis is finished and you make the actual ovum and the sperm, they're going to be haploid, meaning they only have 23 chromosomes instead. Okay? So let's first look at the sperm cell. It's still a fully developed sperm. You're gonna have an acrosome, okay? Now the acrosome is the tip, is the head, and it's gonna be responsible for secreting different types of digestive enzymes that's gonna be able to break through the wall of the ovum, okay? This is called zona excuse me, pellucida. All right, it's made up of glycoproteins, okay? And once the sperm cell crosses over, it then delivers its nucleus into a receptive secondary oocyte, okay? So the nucleus within the head of the sperm is going to deliver its it's going to deliver the nucleus into the ovum, okay? And then it's going to deliver into a receptive secondary oocyte. And I'm going to be talking more about this. I know it's kind of jumping the board. We'll talk about this more about the oocyte, primary oocyte, secondary oocyte, ovum, those different terms in the next section of this unit, okay, of sexual reproduction. All right, but we're focusing on mostly the sperm, okay? So the acrosome secretes enzymes to break down the wall around the ovum. This is why sperm cells are able to penetrate through it, okay? And well, and the other reason, of course, is the tail. The tail, the flagellum. Oh, I actually should write this down. The tail of a sperm cell is a flagella. Okay. Normally, you don't see these in mammalian cells in multicellular organisms like us, but only specialized cells like sperm cells will have a flagella. Okay, and of course, it's required so that the sperm cells could travel through the fallopian tube. Okay. And that that works together so they could deliver the sperm to the ovum. Okay, pretty straightforward. Okay, not much. How do I write what? Oh, flagellum. I spelled a few there. You normally see in bacteria. Okay, and bacteria and then unicellular eukaryotes. Sometimes you see it too, but mostly you're going to see prokaryotes that have it. Okay, so let's talk about spermatogenesis. Okay, and this is and this is the whole process of going from diploid to haploid. So this is kind of like meiosis. All right. So the formation of spermatozoa takes about 2 months, give or take. Okay. Now you first start with spermatogonium. Now spermatogonium is going to be the very first step. Okay, and that's the germline cell. All right, the primary sperm cell. Okay. Actually, don't want to zoom in. I'll zoom in a second. Okay. Now, I want you to take note of this convention before I zoom in into the picture, okay? You see the letter, this 2N here? 2N means diploid. That means it has 46 chromosomes, okay? 2N means 46 chromosomes, and the letter N here means 23. All right? Does everyone did anyone not know this? Or was that something that I need to clarify? N stands for haploid, 2N stands for diploid. Okay. This is yeah, you would normally learn this in like Bio 110, the when you go into the meiosis chapter, you do learn about this, but it's okay. Yeah. You guys aren't bio majors, so it's understandable. Uh but that's so yeah, so N stands for 23, it's haploid, and then 2N is 46 chromosomes. So you have the two pairs, one from mom, one from dad. That's diploid, okay? Just to get that out of the way. All right. Okay, so you first start with spermatogonium, okay? Now, just get my marker out. Okay, so spermatogonium is going to become a primary spermatocyte, okay? Primary spermatocyte is known as the primary sperm cell. This is still diploid, okay? Then the primary spermatocyte, okay, is then going to undergo meiosis one, okay? Meiosis one is going to produce something called secondary spermatocyte, okay? Now remember, meiosis 1 isn't reductive yet. Meiosis 2 is when the reduction of chromosomes happens, when you split into half, so you get 23 chromosomes instead of 46. It happens during meiosis 2, okay? So during meiosis 2, secondary spermatocyte is then going to become something called spermatids, okay? Now, a spermatid is an immature sperm cell, okay? So it's going to be haploid, but it's immature, okay? And you make four. Actually, I'll show you how it works. Uh, so the spermatid is going to then eventually mature into spermatozoa. Spermatozoa is the actual sperm, okay? Now, this maturation, of course, is going to happen because of FSH. So FSH has to do with this whole process, okay? It influences this process of maturation of your gametes, okay? Now your spermatids, excuse me. Spermatids are the immature form, so they're non-functional, okay? All right. Spermatozoa, aka sperm, is your actual functional sperm cells in a male, okay? All right. So let's take a look at the picture quickly. It's a nice picture. It actually shows you each process, okay? Like what stage of cell division you're looking at, all right? So taking it from the top, all right? So during mitosis, okay, you just replicate your cells, meaning that one cell, one spermatogonium, this is your germline cell, all right? This is the germline. Actually, I'll just type in the chat here. Germline cell. Okay? And that's spermatogonium. For males, it's spermatogonium, okay? And this is everyone knows when mitosis happens. One cell becomes two cells, Two cells becomes four cells becomes eight cells, okay? That's how it works. And you're maintaining a diploid count, okay? Now, the real interesting part, this whole process of the maturation of gametes happens with meiosis. So let's scroll down here, okay? So during meiosis, you start with a single spermatogonium, okay? Now, I actually skipped something here. The picture doesn't do this. Okay, there we go. It starts from here. All right, my bad. It's the way the figure works, okay? So you start with a spermatogonia right over here, okay? So then you're gonna undergo meiosis. Okay, so you're gonna start undergoing meiosis. So it's gonna first become so the spermatogonia is gonna become your primary spermatocyte, okay? It's still diploid, all right? And after that, it's gonna undergo your first meiotic division, okay? And it's still gonna be diploid, okay? It's still diploid. It just appears that way. All right. It still has sister chromatids. All right. Then after the second meiotic division, so meiosis number two, this becomes two individual spermatids. Okay. So basically, each spermatogonia, you're going to produce four sperm cells at the very end. Okay. You get two, one and two here. This marker thing stinks sometimes. All right. And then, like I said before, your spermatids then is going to mature into fully functional sperm cells. You could see here the difference here. A fully functional sperm cell is going to have the flagella, right? The headpiece, right? A spermatid doesn't have all these different structures, okay? And of course, guys, you know, over here, let me get this. One primary spermatocyte, and I said this already, is going to give you four sperms. Okay, that's important. I want you to know that. Okay. So this picture here is really nice. I could definitely see myself using this on an exam, okay, or parts of it. All right. It's really simple stuff. All right. And of course, one sperm cell is one or two, okay, or maybe three sperm cells. If you have triplets, twins, quintuplets, maybe, right? A sperm cell, at least one sperm cell is required to fertilize the an egg. Okay, and it makes a zygote. Okay, is everyone clear on that? Okay. Anyways, okay, so let's talk about how the what exactly happens during the maturation of a spermatid into a fully functional sperm. Okay. Now, what happened is, okay, the spermatid is going to shed its cytoplasm. It's going to get rid of its cytoplasm. All right. So here's your nucleus, spermatid's nucleus. Okay. So it's going to start getting rid of all its cytoplasm as well as organelles. So all the organelles that you see in here, such as the Golgi, mitochondria. It's gonna start getting rid of everything. I mean, it has mitochondria, but it's gonna exist in a different form. I should be more specific. Okay, it's going to kind of evolve to fit the function, the form and function of a sperm cell. Okay, so you're gonna get rid of all these organelles. Okay, and eventually the mitochondria sort of wraps around the flagella, the piece of the flagella that's actually going to be inside of the basal body. Okay, so I don't want to go into that much detail, but the way the flagella works is it's not just stuck on this tip here. It kind of it protrudes inside of the body of the sperm cell, and that's where the mitochondria sort of wraps around itself. And this makes sense. Okay, guys, what's the mitochondria's primary function? What's the primary function? Yeah, produce ATP. Now, what does whipping of the flagella require, you think? The spinning of the flagella to move the sperm cell. What do you think it requires? ATP, right? So it makes sense that all these mitochondria is going to be wrapped around the inner motor of the. So actually, it doesn't show you here, but the area where you see the mitochondria being wrapped around, that's the motor piece, the quote unquote motor piece of the flagella, okay? And it's going to provide all the ATP required to spin it, so the sperm cell could propel itself, okay? Make sense, everyone? Cool. Very nice. This is easy stuff. All right. So let's talk about quickly just some of the characteristics of your sperm cell, okay? So we said that when you mature a sperm, you get rid of a lot of its cytoplasm, right, and all the organelles, most organelles, okay? So the head contains very little cytoplasm and organelles. It's mostly the genetic material, so it's going to be haploid, so 23 chromosomes, okay? The acrosome, like we mentioned before, has enzymes such as lysosomes, okay? Has lysosomes with digestive enzymes, excuse me, lysosomes. Lysosomes are the organelle. It's a little vesicle that contains enzymes. If you remember correct, if you remember from the beginning of the semester, it's going to help penetrate the ovum. Okay. Now the midpiece body is going to have a lot of mitochondria, and like I said before, it's going to be being used to produce a lot of ATP for locomotion. Okay. And the tail piece is going to have the microtubules, like the microtubule filaments, all that protein for actual spinning. So that's the protein that spins flagella. Okay. It has microtubules primarily, and the principal piece is going to be at the base part of it. It's the largest part of the tail, so it's this piece here. Okay. This piece here is going to be your principal piece, and then the end piece is going to be towards the tip. Okay, guys, over here. Towards the tip is the end piece, and it's a small part of the tail. All right. Is everyone okay on this? This is pretty straightforward. There's not much more for me to say on this. Everyone good? All right, great. Awesome. So we're done with this chapter. Now we could start. I'm going to start a little bit with the following chapter, and let me just pull that up quickly. All right. Does everyone see it? Let's lecture number 15. Okay, great. So now this is going to be us talking about the female reproductive system, okay? And this is going to be, let me see here. This is going to be the second last lecture, guys, believe it or not. And I mentioned this yesterday. The one after this is just the immunology with some lymphatic system. So, just like the male portion, this is just as easy. It's a little bit more difficult, but it's very easy. It'll catch on quickly. Okay. Now, some questions I'm going to be asking and addressing in this, right? About how why do women have cyclic reproductive hormone releases, right? So you have your period every month, right? So you're gonna have estrogen peaks, okay, which causes gonadotropin releasing hormone to peak, okay? And this is gonna be the same thing in a female, right? You have the same hormones, but what they do, like the actual after effect is gonna be different between women and men. For men, you're gonna be uh, focusing on releasing testosterones. In women, you're gonna be focusing on secreting estrogen, okay? So it's going to cause luteinizing hormone and follicle stimulating hormone to peak, meaning that it's going to be secreted a lot. You have a lot of secretion of both LH and FSH, and this causes ovulation to occur a day later. Okay? And this is when, this is a time when women can conceive children, right? They could get pregnant during this time period. Okay. So this is just a little picture of what happened in the lumen of the fallopian tube. Just a little picture, just to show you guys, something cool that happens. Okay, so this here, so over here is your ovary. Okay, this here is going to be the oocyte. Okay, so this here actually is a secondary oocyte from the ovary. All right, so this is a partially matured, not completely, but it's within that process still. Okay, all right, and then over here you have the uterine tube and then the fimbriae. Right, so this is the lumen of the fallopian tube. Okay, this is how it looks like. And of course, it's colored nicely. All right. But we'll talk about this more later on. But just to give you a nice little picture to show you uh, of this section of the female reproductive system. Okay, so I'm not going to go into great detail again on this, but you should know this for the exam. Okay, you should all know that the the pituitary gland is the master gland. Everyone remembers that, right? That the pituitary gland is our master gland. Okay, it is regulated only by the hypothalamus as far as being able to secrete the different hormones that it produces. Okay, we have the anterior and posterior and pituitary. Okay, uh, and we're mostly focusing on the anterior for the most part. And a lot of these not enzymes, a lot of these hormones are mostly for the anterior pituitary. Okay, and remember that the adenohypophyses is your anterior pituitary, and the neurohypophyses is your posterior pituitary. Okay, that's going to be for the exam on this week. Okay, so this week's exam, you're going to have to know that. Uh, for this exam, I'm not going to test you on those names again, but you should know about this portal system. Okay, how the different tiers of regulation that occurs here. Okay, first you have the hypothalamus. Okay, then you're gonna have your portal system over here, a little portal over here. Just circle it over here, and then last but not least, you have your pituitary gland. Okay, which is this whole thing here. Okay, and of course, your pituitary gland is going to be producing certain hormones, like I mentioned in the previous chapter, important for sexual reproduction. Okay, follicle stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone. Okay, two very important ones for this. Okay, as well as prolactin. Prolactin is really important for women, right? For production of milk. Okay, when they're going to be child rearing, that's going to be a hormone really important in that. Okay. All right. Anyways, is everyone okay on this? Because this is a review for like the umpteenth time. No, adrenal gland has to do with your kidneys. I'm sorry, with your liver. Oh, yeah, adrenal hypophyses. Yeah. Does that answer your question, Drew? Yeah. I'm sorry, I misunderstood your question. But yeah. Okay. All right. So this is going to be the same chart that we saw for the male puberty, but for female now instead. And we're going to kind of see, you will see a lot of overlap, sort of, because a lot of things that happen between men and women during puberty, there are some similarities, right? Such as height increase, right? Larger bones, right? That kind of thing. But then the big difference becomes with secondary characteristics, okay? Now, for women, women they usually reach puberty a little bit younger than men. They tend to. Okay. Now, for men, I did say it's 8 to 14 years, but really, women get it in practice. It's on average, it's more women they get it earlier. Uh, Now, the primary uh, hormone involved here is, of course, estrogen. Estrogen is going to be responsible for the development of secondary characteristics in a woman, unlike men. Okay. It's going to further gonad development. This here, of course, is going to be your sex organ, so the vagina. Okay. And of course, just like the men, we're going to be looking at gonadotropin releasing hormone. That's going to be stimulating the secretion of follicle stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone. Okay, from the adenohypophyses. Okay, and Drew, here is the adenohypophyses, is an anterior pituitary gland. Okay, and so in a woman, what does FSH do? Okay, Well, FSH is going to do the same thing. The primary function is the maturation of gametes. So for women is stimulation of oogenesis. So oogenesis is going to be in parallel to spermatogenesis in the sense that this is the actual process of coming from a oocyte, I'm sorry, from a primary oocyte to a secondary oocyte and then a fully functional egg down the road, okay? Then luteinizing hormone is going to be regulating ovulation and menstruation in each cycle. Okay, so let's see what happens. Okay, during the age of from starting from the age of 8 over here. Okay, so you could, and we're going to look at so over here all these different measurements. That's physical secondary characteristics. Okay, up here see the estradiol levels, blood levels, as well as follicular stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone levels. Okay, so it doesn't take until like about the age of 9 or 10 where you're going to start to see secretion, increased secretion of your different gonadotropin hormones, so FSH and LH. Okay, and this kind of increases for a period of time. Okay, during puberty. Okay, then estradiol, okay, that's going to be the precursor to estrogen. Okay, this it's the form before it. Okay, and it's going to start being secreted in higher levels during puberty. So throughout, from the ages of 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, right? That's going to be when estradiol is going to be increasing secretion and therefore increase estrogen level. Now, what does estradiol do? Well, it's going to be responsible for development of breast, pubic hair, a growth spurt. Okay. Okay. And that's going to be the peak velocity is going to be at age of 12. Now, like I said before, girls in grade school, all right, entering like between, fifth grade, sixth grade, they tend to be taller than boys of the same age, right? It isn't only until high school, early high school, maybe the last year of middle school, last 2 years, last year of middle school, I should say, where you see that boys get taller than girls, right? On average. Is everyone clear on this? This is pretty, it's parallel to the man, the male puberty chart. Is everyone okay on this chart? And I kind of already went over it on the male. Like I kind of spoiled you guys. I kept going over, I kind of mentioned female at the same time as men. This chapter is going to be a lot talking about oogenesis too. There's a portion of it talking about oogenesis. So that'll be interesting. Okay, so we'll stop here. We'll we'll start off tomorrow from the uterine fallopian tube. We will be finishing this chapter tomorrow. Okay, on Friday there's no class. I'll make an announcement sometime today. All right. The exam, same format as the previous take-home exam. Okay. Next week is going to be our last quiz. Okay. And then the following week is going to be our fifth exam. Okay. The following week, so the first week of May is going to be finals week. So we're done, guys. This is the very end of that of the road here. Okay. So that's it for today, guys. Uh, if you have any